Our guest today is Sajan Pillai, CEO of UST Global, and we are planning to speak to him about a new social impact initiative they are just about to launch called Step It Up America. Sajan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Can you, just to start, tell us a little bit about UST Global's business operations and your social impact philosophy?
Thank you. USD Global is an information technology services company providing high technology information services for Global 1000 companies. That's our core focus. We are a Southern California headquartered company. We have operations in 24 countries worldwide, in North America, in Latin America, Western Europe, and in Asia, now going into Africa. So we provide information technology services with large number of engineers in North America and in Mexico and in India.
And what's your social impact philosophy?
When the company was formed in the late 90s, we figured that information technology, particularly knowledge economy jobs, are going to compete for talent. And this talent, the new economy, knowledge economy talent, is a little different from the talent we've had so far. And the folks that join the new firms, they are looking for a cost that's beyond the P&L, beyond the quarterly P&Ls and financial performance. So we figured that in order for a company to be successful for the next millennium, you need to have a purpose larger than oneself, something beyond the traditional sense of business operations. So the whole notion was to create something like that, and we also figured that in the economy, while the traditional industrial revolution brought about industrial companies which had financial capital as a competitive differentiator, and then in the last century it gave it away for intellectual capital. Companies with larger intellectual capital succeeded. But I think a new type of capital is evolving, which is social capital. And we figured that has got to be a fundamental fabric of the company. And what we did right from the get-go, our motto was transforming lives. And what it really meant is using technology, we intend to transform the lives of community, our customers, and our employees. That was the original mission. We focused on two things as a social purpose: women and children, and on health and education were two subject areas that we focused. So this philosophy was woven very deeply into the fabric of the company. It's not something you do as an initiative. It's something that is inherent in how we do, how we promote people, how we select people. And I have to tell you that it has become as much a social and cultural difference for the company as much as our business operations and strategy.
Great. Fascinating. Your latest initiative is Step It Up America. So tell us a little bit about what your vision and objective is for this program.
Well, the Step It Up America concept was formed because I chair the Council for STEM, for Innovation, and I have been
Science, Technology,
Engineering, and Math Council. It's a federal council. I think the whole notion there was to figure out the incredible dearth of or gap of talent between what is required for the country and for the whole world in science, technology, engineering, and math, and what's being produced. For example, just in oil and gas, energy sector alone, U.S. is trying to be oil independent by 2030. And it's possible because of natural resources. But the problem is the U.S. as a country has to have 2.5 million to 3 million STEM-educated professionals. Guess what? We produce about 130,000 STEM students, graduates every year. So there's a huge gap in that. So that's just one example. So there's a tremendous amount of talent gap. Yet you see in the economy, a lot of the kids world over are graduating into or educated into unemployment, facing unemployment as they come out of college. So there is huge gap between the kids are getting educated while the jobs are going unfulfilled. So we said there has to be a better way to match these two things, and we can create a social a socially responsible initiative. So we said information technology is the new oil. It's a very fungible kind of employment in the knowledge economy. It's not really dependent on where you are. So we said, listen, we can take the ability to train large amounts of people that we already had, that we did this in Mexico and in India and other parts of the world. Why not bring into inner cities of America, where we would pick minority women who haven't really had the chance to go to a university, but have displayed the determination to go to a community college. We will go select them, train them, take the risk on them, and make them information technologists and support them by our global workforce, and give them an opportunity to be participant in the knowledge economy. We see how societies are transformed. When we did this in Mexico and other parts of the world, we have no doubts that we could do the same thing. So we are starting this program in Atlanta on the 19th. Our objective is to go to 10 cities in 10 months, 100 women each, so 1,000 women in 10 months, and then we will scale up from there. So that's the plan.
So a quick follow-up, or maybe even two. One, tell us a little bit about how you're going to select these women. And then I wanted just to clarify the concept. Do you select and train these women, and then are they employed by your company? Do they go on to employment elsewhere? What's the plan?
The first answer to the first question is, we're looking at different ways of selecting these women. These candidates can all be selected through traditional techniques. So we are actually using civic leaders. We're going to the churches, local churches. We are looking at local community leaders to ask for their inputs and the opinion. And we're then going to use some internal testing to see. But what we're really, really looking for is the fire in the belly, is the real driver. Because the whole notion here is we have found that in knowledge economy, low income does not equate to low IQ. And that's a big myth that many corporations have, and that's somewhat embedded in our educational system and in our corporations. So we know that's not true. So we're going to give these women a shot. Yes, they're going to be hired and will be our employees, but they will be building these technologies as our employees, as consultants for many other corporations, because that's our core business. So if I'm in Atlanta, we would be hiring them into our Atlanta office as UST Global employees, but they will be providing services for large corporations in Atlanta region. So that's really the model. So it's a self-sustaining model that they shouldn't suffer social displacement of having to go relocate somewhere and leave their kids and their families behind. That's the whole idea.
How will you assess their skills? And what's the training program going to look like?
So the training program is somewhat different. It's getting customized for this type of demographics. I think it will be a combination of critical thinking skills, social behavior skills and fine-tuning of that, information technology skills, of course, which is a core curriculum. We have now perfected the technique to create accelerated human capital development, because we have had, we figure right now we can take somebody who is not an engineering graduate and can make them an information technologist in less than 6 months of training, actually give them pretty high-paying jobs as long as the aptitude exists. We think that that would be the time frame for the training. Well, as the program scales, we will know if we need to fine-tune or recalibrate that. The training will have multiple components. One is this core training. The other one is the softer skills that we will focus on. So they will have, one of the challenges that many of them have is not having a visible role model. So we are going to bring in women, minority women particularly, who have done exceedingly well in these careers as instructors, well-known individuals, so they can see role models. So role modeling is as important as the rote curriculum. So that's a combination of things we are planning to do.
Now, who are your partners in this venture? Have you already signed up a group of companies who have agreed to employ these women once
Yes.
they pass through your training process?
Well, we have now in city of Atlanta, we have all the major corporations in Atlanta are interested in helping us. They are waiting for this to get launched. I think there are about CEOs and top executives of the top 10 or 15 companies are showing up in the launch to participate. And once we finish the training program, many of them have expressed interest to participate in this already. There has been tremendous amount of interest, both from the political leaders, civic leaders, and from corporate leaders into this program. Because, as you know, bringing jobs to inner cities and transforming their lives is very, very important for those companies, for those leaders. But there's never been a scalable, results-driven program of this scale and this nature. So many of them are backing us. So we are not alone in this. We have several partners who are helping us.
And what's the start date? When do you actually think you'll start?
November 19th, which is next week.
Yeah.
Yes, that's our launch in Atlanta.
So help us visualize or think about the typical candidate or typical candidates. Should we be thinking about women who are unemployed, who've had a professional career but maybe quit, who are young and just starting out? What's the view?
I think we are going to initially start with women who went through the community colleges and just starting to enter the workforce. As you know, economic situation is not great. It's not a job-friendly economy at the moment. So many of them have gone through, but they are heavily underemployed. So we're going to go through, that's the bulk of the initial selection, out of the women who have graduated from community colleges with some good core skills, but they've not been able to find good jobs. But then we will expand to other categories, such as women in other parts like social work, etc., who cannot take a job by traveling because their economic situation do not allow them to do that. In this kind of business, in knowledge economy, these women don't have to travel. And so they can be more responsible, more available to their families, at the same time can work in a high-paying job. So that's really what we are looking for initially. But then it will scale. Once we reach the number of 100 in every city, then we will scale up to different other branches. This is sort of the vision.
Great. Do you want to take that?
Sure. Now, so it's a very ambitious program. After Atlanta, you have said that you want to roll it out in 10 other cities. Can you give us a sense of how much USD Global plans to invest in Step It Up America? Do you have any co-investors? And how will you sustain it over time?
Well, the initial investment will be in the vicinity of $20 or $30 million. But I think as we scale, I want this to be a self-sustaining program. So as the women are trained and they become employed, that becomes a revenue that potentially can underwrite some of the ongoing costs. I understand that there is a financial risk to the company, but we think it's worth taking the risk because I think every community, every society, all of us, in fact, look for one thing that is vital, and that is to get one more shot. And I think this may give these women one more shot at in a career that they never had a shot before, and hopefully can transform those communities and their homes. And my point is that may create a social momentum just like what we have seen in other parts of the world. I'm a big believer, I'm an optimist. I think this could turn on a social dynamic, an economic dynamic that could make it sustaining. Just by the sheer interest of the corporations that have come already lined up, I think this program, we won't be limiting to 100 people. I think we would be expanding far beyond that.
So based on the kind of work you've done in other countries, can you tell us what are the success factors? What are the key points that allow you to train people this quickly, to ensure that they actually become skilled employees and effective employees?
So I will take a couple of examples. When we went to Mexico, when we started going into not Mexico City or Guadalajara or Monterrey, but to second or third tier cities, like in Leon or smaller cities like Central Fox and stuff like that. So when we took the kids from there, the traditional wisdom was that it's got to be a 4-year or 5-year engineering grad, and they must have this kind of qualifications. Since we didn't have those kids in that area, we started looking at other types of disciplines, and we found that by using a variety of techniques for accelerated competency development, that includes the traditional classroom training, which is a sort of an immersion program. It's an intense program. Combine that with the self-paced online virtual education, which we have the infrastructure and content for, which is very Khan academic type-ish information technology training. So the pace, the whole notion is the traditional education typically has time-fixed competencies variant, right? You have 4 weeks to get this done, 3 weeks to get this done. So we shifted that around. We said time is variable, but the competency, you have to reach a certain level of proficiency before you. That was the magic sauce. Because different people from different backgrounds learn the initial foundational blocks of knowledge at different pace. But once they get a minimum set of standards, they accelerate at the same pace. That was the shift in the training program that we implemented. And that's the program. But it takes some customization for the demographics you operate. It's finely tuned to succeed in that environment. That's what we're going to do in Atlanta.
Great. And what are the challenges you're facing now as you go forward in Atlanta and to begin this program in the United States?
Well, my sense of my challenge originally was a lot higher than what actually turned out. The first and foremost is to get the right candidates. You have to be careful. You have to attract them. We are going into a section of the society that may not have had this particular job as a career plan.
Right.
So to convince them, make them aware, make them excited, make them engaged, and make them recruit, and that's one. And the second thing is preparing these women to be corporate citizens. So there's a lot of things that we take for granted that may not be part of their ecosystem, such as dressing for success. So one of the things that they may have a lot of differences about, if you don't know how to dress to go to, you're going into very large corporations, some of the largest in the world. They may be very smart, but they may just be hesitant. So you got to take them over that. That's a little bit of challenge. Keeping them in the program sometimes could be a challenge because they have kids to take care of, or parents to take care of. Usually, the women have the responsibility to take care of them. So we got to balance their schedule with the education, and then finally, I think finding the companies that would. On our payroll, but would employ them, take a shot, give them a chance, because there's not a program that many companies are comfortable with, have done this. They've done it in small scale in some cases, but never have done this in big scale. So you need some business leaders who want to take the risk on this program to say, you know what, do this with us. For example, one of the leaders that I was very impressed was Frank Blake, the CEO and chairman of Home Depot. I went and met with him. And within a few minutes, he said, this is a fantastic program. Come to Atlanta. I will participate in this. My team will I'll take the risk with you. Those type of leaders are the ones that we need. So that initial, there's always that initial hesitation to see if it works. Somebody has to take the risk. We are taking the financial risk and others, so we just need those sponsors. So that's the other challenge. We're beginning to find a lot of companies actually lining up to do this. So that, and hopefully as we grow, the investment that we are making becomes more manageable, so that it's a sustainable sort of program.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you about next. What value do you see this program creating for the young women, for the companies that employ them, for USD Global, and for society as a whole?
It's a great question. I think the value, I see it in those 4 dimensions, actually. The first and foremost, for the companies that employ these women, many of these companies have been in those locations, in those cities for decades. You're talking about very large companies. And it is, many of the business leaders know that they have to make a difference in the community, because it is the community they operate. That goodwill and the ability to make a positive impact in those local communities is critical for those CEOs and the executives. So it gives them another tool to be relevant in those communities. So it's important for them. It's important for the women who are employed in this program, because this is the first time In many cases, in those families, if ever had a job in knowledge economy, and for that matter, white-collar jobs. So that's a big deal. It's a transformative deal. They become the role models in the society. It's a high-paying job. This jobs, information technology jobs, typically as a starter job, start at about $30,000 or $35,000 a year. Very quickly can get up to $70,000 or $100,000 a year, and even higher. So this can be quite a lucrative and quite a rewarding career, and it's a career of the future. So that's important for those communities. I think for USD Global, it's significant because, first of all, it aligns with our mission of jobs, technology, training, and peace, which is the 4 pillar stones of what we stand for, and impacting and transforming lives of the communities we operate. It brings in a huge amount of diversity. And if you look at it, it's interesting because we are a global player. We are an information technology provider, so we use talent from all over the world. But we do think that information technology, the demand is so high, yet almost all this demand is supplied by a few hot locations in the world. And we think information technology is the new oil of the world. It can be distributed more evenly. So we're trying to sort of make it a global phenomenon as opposed to being concentrated on 1 or 2 locations. So we think that can be a disruptive model and can be a competitive strength for us to say we're going to do this thing somewhat differently. So we think that would be significant for us. So we think that it's a win-win-win for all parties, and I think job creation, of course, is the top agenda for the government, and especially jobs in STEM. And what better way to incite that than running programs that takes decades to fulfill the promise. This we're talking about giving jobs in a few months.
So the question I have is, how have your employees responded to this idea? You're bringing in a new group of employees, a new set of trainees. What's the response?
Very, very excited, because many of the leaders stay in our company. It's a knowledge economy company, not because they want to be just successful, because our mantra is, if you want to be successful, there are lots of companies in the world, technology companies in the world, that can make you successful, because you have good degrees, you're working in information technology, the hottest sector, one of the hottest sectors, you're going to be successful. But if you want to be significant, the distinction between being successful and significant is different, and we give them an opportunity to make a difference. And that's what gets their juices going. So a lot of the existing leaders in the companies volunteering in large numbers to participate in this program. But as the new type of as this set of communities come into the company, it definitely will create a more global, more diverse, and hopefully more creative and more diversity of ideas and perspectives, which we need to move the company forward. So I think everybody looks at it positively.
Great.
How will you measure the program's social impact?
I'm not a social scientist, so I'm not really sure how we impact. I'll tell you, when I go to Mexico now, I sit down and talk to the kids who got the jobs with USD, and those kids didn't come from the traditional background that you and I can, in some cases, unimaginable background. And their passion and commitment is probably one of the biggest rewards of being in the business. And clearly, that's what I'm looking for. And this is not only commercially I hope that would be very successful, but also it, in my view, could be extremely rewarding just to see the impact that we could make. I think creating 1,000 jobs in high tech in 10 months, and then possibly scaling up to several thousands, probably, in my view, could be one of the largest job-creating initiatives in the country today. So I'm really hopeful that that creates the impact that we're hoping for, both not only for these women in the communities, but also for the corporations and for USD Global, so it becomes a sustaining and ongoing effort.
Do you see taking this initiative globally? Do you think, or have you already in some ways taken it globally and now you're bringing it domestically?
Very interesting. So we have been approached by Prime Minister Rajoy of Spain, and I went and met with him a couple times. He wants to start a program in Spain, so we are starting the program to train 5,000 people in Spain. You know, Spain is not the place with a lot of employment these days, so this would be a pretty big impact to Spain. I think it's a terrific location for information technology, so we are doing something very similar in Spain. We're just initiating another effort to go to a specific country in Africa. So we think this is a true global phenomenon, but this particular initiative is going to be focused in the U.S. to create jobs here. But we're going to figure out how to learn from each other, because we've already done this in Mexico. We're doing this now in Spain and in Africa. And another initiative that is very much on the cards is to do a similar program for women in Saudi Arabia. One of the challenges there is the women are highly educated, so it's a little different process, but they just can't drive to work because of the social system. But see, information technology jobs are fungible, and therefore we can give them jobs which is socially acceptable, but these women want to be productive in society, and it's a necessity. So we are initiating a program in the Middle East to do that. So I think this concept is highly scalable.
One last question. Where do you see Step It Up program in 5 years?
If I were to have my druthers, first of all, I think we want to be known for having disrupted the social ecosystem in positive manner, and giving jobs in high tech, making minority and diversity appear in STEM jobs. 27% of the workforce are minority and women, yet only 3% of STEM jobs are amongst minorities. There's a huge gap. So this is, first of all, would reignite that. I hope that this effort would do that. This effort hopefully could bring a renaissance in having the minorities participate in the knowledge economy, which is so significant, because 75% of the jobs of the next 50 years will be in this sector, hardly being participated by the diverse minorities. So if we can bring them, we will have a participatory economy, which is healthy for everybody. So I think that would have, and the whole concept of inner cities in many cases are somewhat in a vicious cycle, because they don't have certain conditions. They don't have enough role models, and therefore they go back to traditional jobs, and it's a sort of a vicious circle. Hopefully, this can break their chain and get these women and their families look at these kind of jobs as new jobs to aspire for, and the kids could go and get those jobs, go to community colleges, go to universities, and get those jobs, and thereby changing the societies. So hopefully that's what I want to be known for. The numbers, I don't know how many, but I'm certainly looking for. You don't have to really create the fire. All you have to do is have to have a spark, and hopefully the winds of change will fan it into flame of somewhat relevance. So that's what we're looking for.
Well, Sajan, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.